okay, Alexmi, well, how did you come to this? How was it that this came about? And so I'm going to be completely transparent with you all and share that I am, an Afro Latina, born and raised in Washington Heights to Dominican parents. I am the eldest of six siblings. And so my family and I were raised in Division 21, which in Spanish is 21 Divisiones. Now, I remember being introduced to this when I was about 8, 9, 10 years old, maybe. And since being a child, I've always been aware, or rather, I've always known that there were greater forces than us within and around us. Now, obviously, I'm a child, so I didn't truly understand or consciously understand the depth and what my experiences, what my beliefs, and even the things that I had witnessed were. I just knew that they were there, right? Now, as I got older, my consciousness and awareness started to develop much more deeply, and I truly understood, what it was that I had been a part of since 8, 9, or 10 years old. This awareness, right, led me to acknowledge that there are people who are born with certain gifts, right? And yes, you can learn to do certain things, but there are certain people who are born with certain things. That's just what it is. And so it wasn't up until 2 or 3 years ago that I honestly started embracing my gifts and utilizing them. Right? Looking back, I've I see now that my gifts have always been there, and that is what has led me to stay away from certain people, to know certain things that I couldn't really understand or put into words, um, and made me feel different from my peers. And again, as a young child, as a teenager, I did not have this conscious ability to understand what it is that's truly going on with me, and what it is that I've truly been a part of this entire time. Now, it wasn't up until I entered college, right? And I was surrounded by way more white peers compared to high school, elementary school, etc., that I realized that my experiences, the things I had witnessed, and my beliefs were considered taboo, weird, even crazy by some. And so for me, this entire time, right, I'm thinking that this is what it is, that people know about this, people do this, people believe in this. But I'm realizing that this is kept in the hush hush. Now, once I started taking courses, and I again realized that all my professors in undergrad were white, um, I recall being in a psychopathology class, which is a course where we learn about disorders, how to diagnose, how to classify, etc. And my professor, a white woman, who to this day I truly admire, adore, and am thankful for, considering that she was one of my first, professional mentors. Um, but I recall being in her class having a discussion about hallucinations. And in this conversation, she's sharing with us about a lady, one of her clients, whose husband transitioned, and she's shared with my professor that she had been seeing her husband, she has been talking to her husband, she has been feeling her husband in her home. And so my professor classified that as a hallucination. Now, here I am, right? Afro Latina Dominican from Washington Heights, raised in 21 Divisiones. And I hear that the very same experiences that I have had are being considered hallucinations. Now, I sat there and I was like, hold up. I'm not hallucinating. I am not diagnosed with anything, nor would I be diagnosed with anything. But what about that lady then? Right? And it wasn't up until that very moment that I, consciously decided that therapy with me would have to look and feel differently than it would with this professor, and honestly with a lot of other therapists out here. Because in order for me to validate, my upbringing, my experiences, and my beliefs, I had to make space for this very same thing in my approach to therapy and for my clients. Now, moving on to grad school, I only had two black women professors, and the rest of my professors, if I recall correctly, were all white or white passing. And I'm sharing this because I want to highlight that this field has been predominantly white for forever. And not only in the amount of white therapists that are available when compared to therapists of color, but more importantly, in the training that we receive, right? Here, again, undergrad and grad school, I would say 98% of my professors were white. I literally only had two black professors throughout my entire, college and grad school training. And this makes me think about, and made me think about back then, honestly, about how do I provide therapy for people who look like me, um, in a way that aligns with their own beliefs, with their own cultural beliefs, when I'm being trained in a predominantly white way and by predominantly white professors. And so, again, this has motivated me to become the therapist that I have and to approach therapy in the way that I do. Because, again, right, as a woman of color, coming from a community of color and having peers of color, and I am aware that traditional therapy, which again is predominantly white, often leads people who look like me to feel disconnected from therapy or the therapy process, to feel that therapy is not for them, to feel that, their therapy is not a space to openly discuss certain things because you don't want to be labeled, you don't want to be diagnosed, you don't want to be seen as hallucinating. So for me, again, as I think about who I am as a person and who I am as a therapist, authenticity, transparency is one of the values that I hold. And I hold it in relation to you showing up as you are, right? Because our cultures are rich as fuck. Pardon my language, but I'm showing up authentically with you all. Our cultures are rich as fuck, and not only in, the clothes, the music, the food, but in spirituality. I also want to acknowledge that not everyone is open to or connected to or embracing spirituality, and that is completely fine, right? Um, Everyone is on their own journey and doing things at their own pace, and that is respected 100%. Um, I don't want anyone to feel that if they don't agree or they don't align with my beliefs or my views, that, you know, they're wrong or I can't work with them. This is just my, again, perspective and the perspective of most of the clients that I work with and who I am as an intuitive therapist. So, thank you for watching, and I hope that this video has helped shed some light on what I do as an intuitive therapist, as well as the approach that I have towards therapy and how I came to this approach. Thank you.